Good evening. This is Fern Hill, and as you can see, it is a particularly long poem. Okay, so let's start. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honoured among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time my lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman. The calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely, the hay fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing, lovely and watery and fire green as grass. And nightly under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the nightjars, flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to awake, and the farm, like a wanderer white with the dew, came back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining, it was Adam and maiden. The sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light. In the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise, and honoured among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new-made clouds and happy as the heart was long. In the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky blue trades, that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few in such morning songs, before the children green and golden follow him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb white days, that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft by the shadow of my hand, in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, I was young and easy in the mercy of his means. Time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea. Okay, so just definitions very quickly. Boughs are branches. Dingle is a deep wooded valley. In the second line, lilting means cheerful, to almost have a bounce in your step, swing in a rhythm. Heydays is a period of time of great success, great activity, great energy. The glory days, some people might talk about. And if you've seen some of the Checkers adverts, they make it seem very old school, very vintage. And there's a man, with a striped vest, and he's got this loud hailer, and he talks about the heydays. That's one of their advertising techniques. Then we've got the Sabbath, which is the day of rest and holiness. We've got nightjars, which is a nocturnal songbird. The ricks, flying with the ricks and the horses. Ricks are a stack of hay or corn. Then we've got gay, and in this context, and given the time period of this particular poem, it means carefree, cheerful. Heedless is reckless, lack of care or attention, and thronged means gathered together tightly. So generally, if you think about a crowd or a group of people and they are thronging, they are moving together tightly. So the one side of the page with the lighter green color, I have put a bracket around and I've written there poet's experience as a child. And then the darker green color on the right-hand side of the page is the awakening, which is the loss of innocence. So on the one side, you've got this very carefree, innocent, naive, everything is wonderful sense of childhood. But then as you become an adult, that naivety falls away, the innocence is lost, and, you know, typically your life is now filled with a mortgage and a bond and bills and other responsibilities. And also the social aspects, you become more aware of what's going on around you. Now, one of the extended metaphors of this life as a child and then waking up one day, in a sense, as an adult and realizing that all of that is lost, is this life on a farm and nature and time being personified. So that is the extended metaphor, because as he goes to sleep, he dreams that the farm is taken away, and then when he wakes up as an adult, the farm is changed. So even if you consider as a child, everything looks so much bigger, distances seem longer, but when you're an adult, it doesn't seem that way. Distances become shorter, things seem to be smaller. The backyard isn't as big as you remember it being. So that is an extended metaphor, but there are different figures of speech that run through this extension and through this poem. As you can see, there is a lot going on this page, but the first thing that I want to pick up on is the color purple, and that is biblical or symbolic allusions. So there are a number of words, concepts, references that are made that has to do with a biblical story, a biblical theme. So the first thing is the Sabbath, the day of rest and holiness. So the Sabbath day is usually considered the Sunday, but for the Jewish people that would be on the Friday, Saturday, so that's different. There is the holy stream, so again the word holy, the diction, the choice of word. Then we've got the farm, like a wanderer white, coming back after this awakening with the cock on his shoulder. And that can be a reference to the cock that crowed when Peter denied Christ during his trial and beatings and the kangaroo court that he went through. So that is one reference. Then we've got the Adam and Maiden, so Adam and Eve, and it speaks here about, it must have been after the birth of the simple light in the first spinning place. So the spinning place is the earth. So there's this reference to creation. And the poet is wondering or reflecting this awakening, this new sight, this new awareness. Is that what it was like with creation? Is that what it was like in the Garden of Eden? And because he refers to Adam and Eve, is that what it was like when they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they realized that they were naked? There was that loss of innocence, naivety, etc. Because if you look at the bottom of the second stanza in this right-hand side section, follow him out of grace. So Adam and Eve were shown every single, type of wonderful moment and relationship with the Lord. But once they ate of that fruit and lost that and sinned, they had to follow him out of grace. They had to leave the Garden of Eden. So there is this sense of creation, betrayal, the cock crowing, the Sabbath, the holy streams, Adam and Eve. Is this what it was like, when creation first started, when they first sinned and lost their innocence? So we call that allusion with an A, because it is alluding to, it is referring to something. It's biblical because the thing that it's referring to is what happened and is recorded in the Bible. Okay, so allusion can be many things, but in context of the descriptions, the imagery, and the references, it is now biblical. Okay, then we have the concept of time. Now, time is reflected, personified, referenced in many different things. Trees can show the passage of time as they grow up and flourish and then die away. There is the concept of seasons, so spring, summer, autumn, winter. There is the morning going through up until the evening. So there is this passage of time, and this is what the poet is referring to, because he started out as a child and then slowly grew up and became an adult. And there's no very clear point where that happens. In a sense, it really does feel like one day you wake up and you just know something is different. And I think Dylan Thomas captures that very, very well in this poem. So in the beginning he says, now as I was young and easy, so he was carefree, there was a sense of freedom. He could, in a sense, do what he wanted. Time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. So he's reflecting back to a time of wonder and amazement and glory. It seemed like time would let him do anything. Okay, the world was his oyster, the time was his to spend as he wanted to. It says that he was honored, okay, he was prince, he was lordly among the trees and leaves. So as a child, he felt like he was the king of his kingdom, the emperor of his empire, and time gave this to him. Again, there is windfall, which speaks of good fortune or luck. It's very unexpected often. So people will often talk about a windfall in terms of finances. One day they open up their bank account and, something that they had forgotten about is now paid into the account. It's unexpected, but it's good fortune. It's a windfall. He talks about being green, and that word is repeated again and again and again, because if you think of something that is green, it means that it is growing. There is life, there is sustenance, there is nutrients. So he is young, he is innocent, he is carefree, there is a sense of belonging. Farm was home. The happy yard, singing. So again, we've got this personification by the happy yard. The fact that the grounds had the ability to experience joy. In the sun that is young once only. So if you think about a day, once in a day, once only in a day is the sun young. And that is at sunrise. It's never going to be young like that again until the new day starts. And again, this is where the passage of time comes in. And he refers to it again. Time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. So now there is this concept of time almost being what we would call benevolent, showing this grace, this mercy. It's almost like the child doesn't deserve it. They are not owed it, but time is giving it to them. He is allowing it. Okay, golden. So again, green and golden, the sense of wealth and richness and beauty and youth. Many of you are probably at this moment, if you have chosen or if your school has chosen to do Dorian Gray, are probably thinking of Dorian Gray in chapter 2, the green, the golden, etc. I was huntsman and herdsman. Again, it's a metaphor. I was these things. Calves sang at my horn. The animals seemed to respond to him. And then in the last stanza, here on the left-hand side of the page, all the sun long, it was running, it was lovely. So during the daylight hours, during this time of his youth and childhood, time was ticking. There is definitely time that is passing, but it was lovely. He enjoyed it. Hay fields, high as the house. So these hay bales, and consider this is a farm, okay? Fern Hill is a farm, all right, that Dylan Thomas spent a lot of time in and grew up in. Tunes from the chimneys. The chimneys seemed to be playing music. It was air and playing, lovely and watery, fire green as grass. So green as grass, there is again a simile there, that line. And nightly under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep. So as he now starts falling asleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. So he's dreaming, he's imagining that while he's falling asleep, because he's not aware of what's happening, because he's not conscious, it feels like the farm is being carried away, like it's being taken. Something is going to happen. There is a sense of magic. All the moon long, I heard, blessed among the stables, the nightjars flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. So the nightjars, these nocturnal birds, are carrying away the hay bales, the corn bales. The horses, like lightning, flash into the dark. They running. There's a sense of speed. And now the tone changes. And then to awake. And the farm, like a wanderer white with the dew, came back, the cock on his shoulder. So I wouldn't necessarily call it ominous, but there is definitely a more somber tone. There seems to be being earnest. So this is now taken on a more serious mood and atmosphere. And then there's a colon. So don't forget, like colons, commas, semicolons, punctuation marks, that's not only just for your language paper, okay, or when you're writing a narrative or an argumentative essay in your paper 3, because it means that there's now going to be an explanation. There's going to be a development of this statement that is made. So the farm, like a wanderer, white with the dew, came back, the cock on his shoulder. So now what's going to happen? Okay, there's a sense that a traveler has returned from a long journey. Okay, like a wanderer, somebody who just, goes about, the country, the continent, the earth, they're wandering. White with the dew come back, the cock on his shoulder. So there is this return. And what more can we say about it? It was all shining. It was Adam and Maiden. The sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day. So in a sense, not too much has changed, but there is something different. So the sun still rises. The sun grew round, it rose and it became noon, but something is different. It is Adam and maiden. There is the cock on the shoulder. So in a sense, time seems to have come up suddenly behind the poet, the speaker. And that is where the sense of time betraying him has come. It's almost like he was carrying on with his life, and when he turned around, there it was. And now he reflects, he thinks, he contemplates. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light in the first. So was this what it was like when there was creation, when the earth and the sky and the heavens and night and day was created? The spinning place, the earth, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable, and the fields of praise. So spellbound horses, these horses that something has captured their attention. They seem to be in a trance. They are fixated, and they are whinnying, onomatopoeia, the sound of horses. They're coming out of the green stable onto the fields of praise. So the poet definitely holds creation as something that is wonderful, something that was wondrous, that was amazing. If he had to see it, there would be this awe that he has. And honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house. So again, gay meaning cheerful, joyful, carefree. So the house is personified, it's happy. Under the new made clouds, and happy as the heart was long. So heart was long, meaning life. As long as you are living, there is this newness, there is this amazement. In the sun born over and over, this is talking about each and every single new day. I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house high hay. So the house high hay is alliteration, the repetition of the h sound. H is not a very loud sound. It is a plosive. If you actually had to exaggerate the sound, h, there is this puff of air. It's an explosion of air, a plosive. And it's this house high hay, this enormous bale, hay bale that is there. And nothing I cared at my sky blue trades, that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs, before the children green and golden follow him out of grace. So this is where the poet realizes that time gave him his time to be carefree. Time was gracious, and he was merciful, and he gave the poet, the speaker, his time. And now time is beckoning, is bringing the speaker, the poet, out of this youth. Okay, time is up. Okay, the count has come to the end, and follows him out of grace. So the poet, the speaker, regards this time of childhood innocence and happiness and freedom as a grace. It was something undeserved. Nothing I cared in the lamb white days that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft by the shadow of my hand. He didn't realize. He didn't think about it. Okay, lamb, innocence, youth, white, purity. In that time, he didn't think that time would eventually take him by the hand and lead him out. in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep, I should hear him fly with the high fields, and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. So that farm forever fled from, that is alliteration again, the repetition of the sound. Again, we have this plosive. This has made an effect on the speaker and the poet. In a sense, if you want to be very colloquial, this hit him hard. Okay, and even in there's the repetition of the sound. So he will never again go to sleep and have this feeling of the farm magically being transported and changing. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea. And again, it definitely becomes a lot more melancholic here towards the end. A childless land. He's never going to be a child again. That time's gone. It's finished. And time held him while he was both green, living, and dying. Okay, so some people, in a little bit of a morbid sense, say that you start dying the moment you are born. And in a sense, this is what this line captures. So time held me while I was both green and dying, even though I sang in my chains like the sea. So even though the poet was never actually free, he just thought he was because he was unaware, he still sang during that time. So there is a bit of a sense of hope. He sang in my chains like the sea. The sea seems to be big and boundless and vast, but it also has a point that it can go up to and no more. So very melancholic here at the end. So that's the whole entire poem. As you can tell, there's a lot going on here, but I want you to consider or remember that the poet is talking about the passage of time going from childhood to adulthood. He is using his time at the farm and his adventures as a comparison, as a metaphor. So to help the reader to understand this passage of time and this transition, this is the metaphor that he is using. So I think if you keep that in mind, that will definitely help. Tone, reflective, nostalgic, joyful, fervent, emotional, melancholy. You can see that as it carries on. I've included the figures of speech, the definitions. At the top, I've said that there's no rhyme scheme, but there is a very strict count of syllables. So the brown numbers that you see on the side, each stanza repeats the same number of syllables line by line. So 14 syllables in the first, 14 in the second, then 9 syllables, then 6, then 9, then 14, then 14, then 7, then 9. So there's no rhyme scheme, there's no rhyming pattern. So there's no A, B, C, nothing like that. It's just a very strict count of syllables that is repeated in each and every single stanza. The themes, time, obvious one, childhood joy, harmony, the wonder of nature, and towards the bottom there it does deal with a sense of regret. You do get this feeling that because it made such an impact on the speaker, It's possible that they're thinking maybe I should have been more aware, maybe I should have spent my time more wisely, should have been more productive, maybe do things differently. There is also this wonder of nature. So, this idea that you can have this wonderful, good, clean fun just by climbing trees and listening to the birds and jumping on the hay bales. And in a sense, that is innocence, and that does become corrupted as you become an adult. And because there is a biblical allusion, there is also obviously the concept of sin, the realization that things are a bit broken. So that is Fern Hill.